and we'll be zooming in and out of different areas of this board throughout the meeting. And now we're going to go to Scott. Scott's been using this. We've been working with Scott to do design thinking around his project and the amazing group that he's got working in South Florida to do a placemaking declaration. And I'll let him tell you more about that.
Oh, thank you, Monica. Welcome, you guys. Again, happy birthday. I am the founder of Placemaking South Florida and the co-lead of Placemaking US. I was one of the original founding members of the Placemaking Leadership Council in 2013. And this is very exciting to see our dream, Fred's dream, evolve into a global movement. Most especially that today being the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, Fred Kent, the founder of the placemaking movement, was actually the organizer of Earth Day in New York City 50 years ago. And the thing that he shared with me is that nobody had any idea that shutting down the streets would create the type of street life and activity. And it was absolutely a pivotal point for him where he decided to embark on this journey that we eventually began to know and talk of as placemaking. So today is a very special day, and it's also the most unique, certainly the most unique Earth Day of any day that I could imagine. In advance of this Placemake Earth Week challenge that came out of Placemaking X, our local team sat down. We had a front porch meeting. There's Michael Moss, one of our local artists. We had a front porch meeting, and we were talking about what we could do for Earth Week to help speak out and make a statement in the world. And there were a bunch of ideas on the table, and it was, I think, March 1st or 2nd. And as we sat there, I realized, and we all did, that we probably weren't going to be able to do any activations of the type that we were thinking. So I'd been doing some reading about the Wuhan Placemaking Conference in December 2018. And at that time, the Wuhan government engaged Project for Public Spaces, Ethan and Catherine Pinehard, several others, to write a placemaking declaration that was formally adopted. And it has 7 points that speak to, hello, Corinna, 7 key points that speak to the design and use and governance of public spaces and speak to equity and inclusion. It was very inspiring. So I said to our team, if one thing can go viral out of Wuhan, why not another? And this declaration, which is posted here on the board, the 7 points, were our point of beginning to say, could we co-create a placemaking declaration for our South Florida community, to put a pin in the map, to make a bold statement that was inclusive and spoke to our larger metropolitan community. But more so, could we do that in a ground-up fashion? What I told you in the beginning was that the Chinese government hired Project for Public Spaces to write a declaration for them, and then they declared it. And we think it's a wonderful model, but we also think that we can use the gift of governance to examine that and come up with something that's context sensitive to our community. And lastly, And this was then with much encouragement from Ethan and Fred and Placemaking X, that we would document this process and share it as the Europeans do with tool tests. We would share this tool with others if they want to make a statement in their community at whatever scale that they might know that we started with a small group of 6 people. And tonight we're including a broader view. We'll probably take all of this condensed information back, all the things we hear from you, and we'll speak to the community again to begin to digest and put this into place. So thus far, we had a very, very vibrant conversation, and we came up with 9 specific topics. We saw, I'm not quite seeing it, Monica. Something's a little out of order there, but okay. So there were 7 points in the Wuhan Declaration. Here we go. Somehow oh, I know what happened. Sure. And the 7 points from Wuhan were then brought into 9 points that we digested from the local group: resilience and climate change, digital equity, racial and spatial inequities, design in places are not neutral, well-being, stress and trauma, community projects. We talked about finance, transit, affordable housing, wanting to be a little more encompassing. So then, just to explain a little bit more, I'll open up for conversation. To take those 9 points, I began chatting with Monica and Ryan and Ethan and said, that's an awful lot. Why don't we reorganize those under a framework that we use in our community called the She Lens? Why don't we take those 9 points that were digested from Wuhan and look at them and say, any declaration is going to need to address sustainability, equity and inclusion, health and well-being, and lastly, infrastructure, financing, and planning and governance. So we now have 4 subtopics that help us to sort of bring our conversations to date into focus. I hope that was as clear as mud. So then, also, this early team built a board like the one you're looking at, and they added a lot of stuff to it. And we still have that board. And then from that, we created a new board for tonight. We still have the old board, but we began to add stuff that was really beginning to focus in on those 4 points and the original 9 that fall under that 4. So Katha, do you have a question?
I was going to ask Monica if she would put those 4. I wanted to capture those. Sustainability, health and wellness. What was the third one?
Equity and inclusion. So
equity and the 4th?
Yeah, is governance and finance. I'm going a little from memory here.
Yeah, that's good. That's all I needed.
Great. So again, and actually, Monica, maybe you could focus in a little bit on the She Lens there, where we start in our local community is, if you look at the yellow stickers there, our motto is that in all changes in the public realm, we ask these 3 simple questions. Is it sustainable? Is it healthy? And is it equitable? So again, I thought that bringing all of our points back under that framework to make sure we didn't miss on any of those notes. Along with that, Katha, we added in the finance governance piece because that was something else that came up in terms of sustainability. Now,
we'll make sure you have all of this, Katha. You'll have access to all of these
hi,
documents.
Nikki.
Well, it's best to capture it while something is running in your mind, so.
Yes.
Yeah, please, if anybody has a question or a comment, just jump in. This is meant to be an informal session. I don't want to lecture any longer. I'd really like to open it up, but I will leave. I'll start it off by saying just underneath the she lens and sort of a converse to the government-led declaration that happened in Wuhan in December 2018. Down in New Zealand, they've blended their indigenous culture with the premise of placemaking and come up with their own form of declaration. If you can zoom in, we may be able to read that. It's really a lot of fun. And I don't know, the resolution on my screen's a little bit tough, but
Make it bigger. Here.
so we've been working a little bit with the folks down in New Zealand, in Auckland, and also a number of the Australian cities, but most especially in New Zealand. The Maori culture is so honored, and it's, to me, just a wonderful statement that they could blend together the roots of their earth and their culture, along with modern premises of creating new systems and policies and making change in their communities. So there's a lot of breadth to the language, and I wanted to leave that open in our community to hear what others have to say. So Monica, I'm going to turn it back to you for a minute. Maybe you can help us kick into the next